It was larger than life. I mean, it was almost to scale. So, and having it illuminated in that way was almost as if it was actually in front of me. In some ways, there was a lot of. It was very easy to recall. It's quite different than looking at a flat image that's not illuminated. It really brought out the sort of depth of what was in the images. So it immediately took me to, like, I can remember the smells and the sounds and the feelings that I experienced while I was there. It was quite easy to reconnect with that. We'd work endless hours, just around the clock, essentially. And you leave the pile, the pit, for a while, just to get some air, or maybe something to drink. But you wouldn't stray very far. You'd be drawn back in because you realize that the magnitude of the amount of work that had to be done was just so incredible that you just felt like you needed to go back. So after maybe you lay down for a while, they had sort of temporary triage and cots set up on the floors of these vacant office buildings across the street in the World Financial Center. And we'd go and lay down there, and it would be all these people in this dark, once full of life building, with broken glass and just sirens and spotlights in the filtering through the glass, and laying down next to each other on the floor, and you could look over at other people, and no one was sleeping. It was too intense. You knew you were racing inside. There was too much to do. So eventually, make an attempt. I would make an attempt to leave and go home, and it was quite a task to get in and out of the site, and finally make my way home after an hour, and then try to lay down, take a shower, and be too restless, and just pick up and turn around and go back down, and go for days more at a time. It was just too much work to do. It was just too many things that needed to be taken care of, and most of all, it was the fact that we felt that it was a race against time. Every minute was critical. Just being in that environment, it was very clear. It was a very harsh environment. As each minute went by, it became more and more clear that it'd be nearly impossible to survive, those conditions. So that's what drove us. I brought my camera down after the first trip back to my home. It was maybe a couple of days after September 11th. I don't remember exactly when. I just there was a number of they were very strict about people taking photographs. They were almost sort of militant, and the press was getting less than warm welcome, and I saw several people's camera taken and destroyed. And it certainly was not something that people didn't look at you funny or angrily, and I just felt that I wanted to record some of my experience, so that when I had children one day, when the time was right, I could share that with them in the way that I saw it, and not the way it was presented by some different form of media that would be the experience that I had, and that was also the experience that many others had. I mean, everyone had their own unique experience, but the setting was the same, So I did take some photographs discreetly, with respect, to in consideration for the magnitude of the tragedy. Every year, the anniversary would come around, and I haven't lived in New York since 2002. I moved from New York, and it's important and significant part of my life and part of history that I feel gets a little bit overlooked, or it's not as important when you come further away from New York. So the anniversary will come, and there's not much to do about it, and that's very disconnecting for me to feel that that something like that can, I felt almost as if it, in other places, it sort of forgotten a little bit. And this year I came across, my photographs, looking through some belongings of mine, and I decided that I wanted to do something, sort of some healing for myself, and that led me, to looking into what was happening in around town around the anniversary. I thought perhaps, it's the 10th anniversary, there'll be something happening, this is, so I started looking into it, and that's when I came across your piece that you were doing, and after reading about other work you had done, it struck me as something that that perhaps you might be interested in seeing the images. That was quite beautiful. The setting, the projection, the service, the fact that people were coming together to meditate and to think about and remember, and not just, for me, it's not just about September 11th necessarily, for me, it's much more. I remember sharing with you that, when I first came down to ground zero, I was very angry. And and thought, like many other people did, let's go get somebody and let's make somebody pay for this. There's a lot of anger, but once you were there for, a little while, it started to dawn on me, and I started to realize that people live like this all over the world all the time. And I suddenly wasn't angry. I felt sympathetic to those people who live like that all the time, and in war zones, and who've fought in wars, and who are innocent people who just happen to live at the wrong place at the wrong time. So when I think about September 11th, I also think about all the soldiers that are giving their life right now, all the civilians that are dying, and it's much more to me than just several thousand people. Although it's very sad and tragic to me, it's much larger. So it felt good to participate in something where people were thinking about those things, even if they weren't thinking about all those things I just described. I was. And it's a little bit to see the images, and I found it quite beautiful, and was, honored to take part in it. I think in some ways I feel like after you working with images for enough time, there's a little bit of I was more interested in watching people's reactions to it, and watching people come together and just be together for, you know, it's something good that can come out of tragedies. It, you know, brings people together, you know, human spirit, you know. This is, if anything good comes out of it, is people trying to connect with one another.